Welcome back to the Truth Factory. Want to give a quick shout out as I'm almost at 100 subs and I want to thank you all. This is another Seth Rich video, and for me, I just want to say it's very easy to go straight off the deep end into conspiracies because they are fascinating. But I want to try to stay at least a little closer to home with facts because you solve cases with facts, not theories. I have a lot of questions, and so I actually went to a friend of mine who is a detective and asked a lot of questions about this case to see what is normal operating procedure and what is not. And so I will go through that Q&A that I had at the end of this video, but first I want to review some interesting Seth Rich clips. I'll put links of all these full videos into the description below. First, a little clip of Mr. Brad Bauman saying that he isn't getting paid.
May I ask, are you doing this pro bono? I am.
Isn't that so nice of him to do this pro bono with no political motivation behind it? Is he doing this for altruistic reasons? Well, for some reason, I don't think so. Next, Rod Wheeler said that Seth Rich went to MedStar, so the hospital is confirmed.
He went to MedStar.
He went to MedStar, so we can't confirm that he went to MedStar.
Next, I want to share a clip of Seth Rich himself asking a question.
Excuse me, Seth Rich with the DNC. I think several of you have spoken about provisional ballots and rejected ballots. I guess we've looked at, as an outside practitioner with a vested interest in training our voters, how do we get better access to data that tells us why ballots are rejected, why ballots are cast as provisional, so that we can analyze that and then develop better training guides?
This is proof that Seth Rich was questioning ballot integrity. The next video is actually from Seth Rich's Vigil.
As of right now, there's no suspect. Nobody knows a motive. There's no reason why this man was gone down. It's basically just somebody who is walking late on Sunday night, and for no reason at all. Apparently, there may have been an attempt to rob him, but that isn't clear. Just a terrible situation. There's the DNC chair, Debbie Watson Shorts, who made it to the Tribune.
Another super confusing element to this case now is this guy named Mark Mueller. And in one interview, they called him Mike Mueller, so either they got his name wrong or he gave them a fake name.
I heard 2 sharp gunshots very quickly. I looked at the clock and it was 4:19.
That's Mike Mueller. He lives in the Bloomingdale neighborhood. He heard the shots. He saw the cops tending to the man in the street.
Now, Mark Mueller is a neighbor who claims he was there when Seth Rich was shot. There's also another neighbor named Scott Roberts, who people were saying is actually Mark. I went through an insane amount of creeping on social media and determined that they definitely are 2 different people that definitely know each other. Anyway, they were both at Seth Rich's Vigil, and Mark got up to say a few words.
I just wanted to say a quick thing that I was there when he got shot, and they walked him past me so I could see him and identify him if I knew him in the neighborhood. And the police officer said he didn't even know he was shot. So if it gives you any comfort, I don't think he had any pain, physically.
Now let me just re-quote that for clarity here. He said, "I just want to say a quick thing that I was there when he got shot, and they walked him past me so I could see and identify him if I knew him in the neighborhood, and the police officer said he didn't even know he was shot, so if it gives you any comfort, I don't think he was in any pain." Now, the first impression I got when I was seeing this is that this is a crisis actor. You know, you see them in the Sandy Hook, you see them in the Boston bombings. This seemed rehearsed to me. Now, I don't know if that's true that he is a crisis actor, but I do know for sure that Mark is an actor. Here's proof. This is him and his lover. Now, he said he was there when Seth Rich got shot. The second thing is his wording is super confusing here. The way he says it sounds like they picked up this man who had just been shot and walked him around the street to ask bystanders if they happen to know who he is. I have a medical background, and that just does not happen. You put the victim in the ambulance and you get them the fuck to the hospital. Once they're in the ambulance, you can look through their wallet and you can take their healthcare card, even if they're awake. It's implied consent that you are trying to save their life. So no, you would not wheel a man around on a stretcher asking bystanders, hey, do you know this guy? No, you just get him in the ambulance. And this is where I asked the detective, would a cop ever tell a bystander details about the victim like he didn't even know he was shot? And his answer was a dumb one might, and might not even know what happened. People like to act like they have more information than they do sometimes. But he said a detective definitely would not do this. So basically, a cop can say anything they want, especially if they're stupid, but they really shouldn't legally do that. Now, it is possible that Mark just meant he happened to be standing near the ambulance and he was trying to see if he could identify Seth Rich and overheard a cop saying he didn't even know he was shot, but that is not how he worded it at all. He said they walked him past me so I could see him and identify him. And now Scott Roberts, he has his picture on Twitter, so we know that he was also at Seth Rich's Vigil. You can see Mark up front in the blue, and he tweeted this: 2 gunshots or fireworks at 4:19 a.m. Police now on the scene, no sirens. 4:19 is kind of a weird thing to say.
I looked at the clock and it was 4:19.
You would think most people would just say it's 4:20. Now, Roberts does post a ton of tweets about the neighborhood to the police. Now, could he be a secret FBI informant? Yeah, absolutely. Or he could just illegally own a police scanner. Now, the part about the no sirens thing kind of threw me off at first, so I asked the detective about this, and he said you wouldn't use your sirens if you thought the suspect was nearby because nothing says run away like a loud siren. You would come in with your lights off and try to sneak up on them, which makes sense to me. So this is where I'm going to finish the video off with some questions and answers from a detective. I like this so we don't go too far into left field making assumptions without facts, because again, facts are what puts people behind bars, not theories, even though theories are super fun. I asked him about the stolen FBI weapons and if it would be against policy to leave them in an unmarked vehicle for a long time unattended. His answer was it depends on the unit, and if everything was stored properly, technically you could leave them in the van, but it would be a very stupid thing to do. I asked him if it was normal not to release an autopsy or toxicology report or any surveillance or body cam footage to the public. He said they typically won't release anything during a homicide and will keep stuff on holdback evidence, stuff only the killer would know. They can't release footage from an ongoing investigation until it's time for court. And then I said, well, I thought footage could be released to the public so that way if anyone knows anything about the suspects, they can come forward, like surveillance footage, for example. He said it would be specific and that would be a last resort. You would try a ton of stuff first, like you would go door to door in that area where it happened and ask around first. But as far as I know, I don't really think they did go door to door and ask neighbors for their security footage, so I think that that's super strange. The neighborhood where he lived had tons of cameras because they had an incentive rebate program. There were like 50 cameras on that street, and the cops only took footage from one camera, which is at the corner store. Maybe that was the only camera that was close enough to what happened, but that seems odd to me. He said it depends on the quality of the cameras and where they're facing and lighting conditions. A camera that doesn't see anything won't help. I asked if it was abnormal to take a laptop if he died in a street robbery, and he said, no, it makes sense. They would take the laptop to try to trace his last 24 hours and come up with a timeline. That would be pretty standard. I asked if the family could use the Freedom of Information Act to get the footage released to the public, and they said not during an active investigation. I asked how long an investigation would be open for before it's a cold case, and he said it depends. At least a few months, could be a few years. Cold cases are usually like 10 years plus. And he said, how do you know that he's even really dead anyways? Maybe he's on an island with Tupac. And I said, that is a conspiracy theory. Although there is a theory out there that Seth Rich, being Jewish, some people think he's in a witness protection program in Israel with the Mossad. And I asked, does that ever happen? And he said maybe in the Bourne Identity. So that's it, folks. There's some question and answers from a detective. I hope that gives some clarity to why the police might be doing things. Anyway, this is what we know for now, and I'll keep updating as more information comes out, because I can't wait 10 years for this to become a cold case. We need to solve this now. Thanks. Have a great night. Meow.